Hello and welcome to the Telescope. Every week we bring you a fresh insight from the biggest car market in the world. We are coming near to the Chinese New Year. We're filming this on February the 1st. And what we do in Chinese New Year, we go back home with our families. I'm gonna take this, the Neo ESA, the biggest, heaviest, most inefficient product in the Neo lineup, and do a 2,000-kilometer journey back to my hometown Chengdu. Now that kind of distance and electric vehicles doesn't really go well together, especially under this kind of weather. But it's a piece of cake for the Neo because all the way throughout the journey, we don't charge the battery, apart from the overnight stop. We only swap. We're gonna swap roughly 7 times during the journey. And I'm gonna show you how electric vehicle long distance driving should be done in China. Today's journey is about 1,000 kilometers. We're going to swap roughly 4 times. I treat this as an endurance race. You're going to see every kind of major performance data throughout the journey, the energy consumption, average speed, the weather we're going through. You may notice our overnight stop is not the shortest distance between Shanghai and Chengdu. That's because we're driving into probably one of the worst snowstorms in 2024.
而当冷空气南下，遇上北上的暖湿气流，会出现这种激烈的交锋。今后6天，我国将会掀起今冬以来最强的雨雪天气过程。
We moved the overnight stop a bit further south to avoid the worst of the snowstorms. So, without further ado, let's get cracking. Hello, you join us on the highway. We are currently 282 kilometers away from our first battery swap. But I have zero range anxiety because I know the gaps between the battery swap stations are carefully determined so that I will always get there, no matter the conditions. Talking about the weather, we expect constant rain like we are now, but the temperature will gradually drop. We are currently on 9 degrees ambient temperature. By the time we get to our overnight stop, that will probably roughly about 2 degrees Celsius. So yeah, not exactly ideal conditions for EV long distance travel, but we only swap, so there should be no worries. We have accidents. I guess weather like this, heavy traffic, everyone's rushing home. We shouldn't be surprised, but that just means we are way behind on schedule. Currently, our average speed is barely over 60 kph, and we've been on the highway all the way through. And our current estimated arrival time is 11:41 p.m. at night. We departed at 8 a.m. today, and originally the projection was this is going to be a 12-hour journey, so we should be there definitely before 9 p.m. but we will be 2.5 hours behind now. I am in probably the worst traffic jam I've experienced personally so far in my life. We are only about 6 kilometers away from our first battery swap station. We should be here by 1 o'clock, and this is the estimated arrival time, which is 4:11. The next 6 kilometers will cost us 26 minutes. We are on the G50 highway heading towards our overnight stop around the Anhui Xuancheng area. And this section, in my opinion, is going under a laughable amount of construction at this time of the year. Bearing in mind, we are only about a week away from the Chinese New Year. They can fully anticipate this amount of traffic, okay? And they decide to close the main road down to 1 lane, which I would like to meet the officials who make this kind of decision. And our current ETA is 2:19 a.m. Hello, it's currently 4:06. We are about 3 hours behind schedule. You've seen the horrific traffic jam, but here we are now. We made it to our first battery swap. This is the first swap of this 2,000 kilometers journey. We've done about 320 kilometers on this battery. Average consumption is about 25 kilowatt hours. So yeah, here comes the first swap of this 2,000 kilometers journey.
关电泊车开始了，请不要操作车门和方向盘，注意观察四周，可以踩刹车控制车速。
It is now 17 past 7 p.m. I don't even know how long we are behind the schedule. The estimated arrival time at our overnight stop is now 2:26 a.m. More traffic jam. I think our average speed is what? Less than 50 kilometers an hour on a highway, which is a joke, but it is what it is. Here goes the second swap. Hello, we are at our third and final battery swap for the day. Apart from the initial traffic jam, I mean, we spent about 45 minutes and only went 8 kilometers. Apart from that bit, which was quite horrific, the past 3 hours has gone relatively to plan, and average speed is okay. And this is our final swap. We have 322 kilometers to go. Current estimated arrival time is 3:24 a.m. After this swap, I'm gonna hand over to my cameraman because I'm just absolutely knackered. But that's not taking anything away from the car. We are one of the fastest cars on this road. It's purely because of the traffic and road construction conditions that we are so limited on speed, and we are so much behind. Anyway, the final swap of the day. It's 6:18 p.m. and I can't quite believe it, but this is our first swap of the day. We arrived at 3:30 a.m. yesterday, or should I say today. We charged overnight and give ourselves a bit of time to rest. We departed again at 11 a.m. Initially, the target arrival time for this battery swap station was 3:30 p.m. and here we are, 6:19 p.m. Sun has already set. We literally spent 7 hours covering 311 kilometers, 50 kilometers an hour average speed on the highway, which is speed limited to 100 and 110. I think that tells you how much frustration we had during this journey. I'm going to summarize my overall feeling towards the end, but one overriding feeling is the machine is not the limit. I am the limit. I'm absolutely knackered. I'm going to hand over to my cameraman again to do the next stint, and we will not make it to Chengdu because currently if we drive all the way to Chengdu, the arrival time is 4:25 a.m. That's just nuts. I'm not going to do that. We're going to stop at Chongqing and do the last 3-hour journey tomorrow. So yeah, this is our first swap of the day at 6 p.m. Unbelievable. Here we go. This is the kind of weather we are dealing with. We've had snow, we've had rain at 0 degrees, which I think it's called freezing rain. And now we have this, it's like millions of mini ice balls hitting the car. It's not quite the big ones, but it's still very concerning because now we still have 3 hours to go. Estimated arrival time 2:53 a.m. I don't want this to be any later. One thing I have to point out, if you haven't noticed already, all of the in-car driving shots are done under the control of the NOP Plus, which is NIO's, I think the full name is called Navigate on Pilot. It uses high definition map, it uses the all-round camera vision plus the LiDAR to not just keep you in lane and control the speed. It can also decide when to change lane if it wants to overtake a car. And I have to say, last night and tonight in conditions like this system has far better vision, has far better knowledge of the overall world around the vehicle at the time. Under that kind of horrendous weather, very limited vision, the human eye can't really see that much. And because of that system, I get to blast through the traffic. We were easily the fastest car last night under the heavy rain, because we can see, or not we can see, the system can see further along. It knows what's coming. It can see, it has cameras on the side of the car. So I am sitting at this very fixed position. I have very limited vision compared to the camera. And it's so sophisticated, the way it changes lane. It decides when to cut out, when to overtake, especially after midnight when your family and your co-worker has gone to sleep. Just you and the system driving the car, you feel like you're not alone. It's that sophisticated. You feel like you are co-driving the car with a very experienced driver, and you are sort of discussing, should I go here? Should I go there? Should I overtake here? Should I be decisive? Should I hold back? It's that sophisticated. Anyway, the last 3 hours to go to our overnight stop, and tomorrow is more like a glory lap. It's a very easy 250 kilometers, 3-hour run, and tomorrow's weather is going to be significantly better. We're expecting about 10 degrees. Now it's 0 degrees with ice balls hitting on the car. So tomorrow is really a victory lap. Let's hope we can get towards tonight's overnight stop before 3 a.m. Well, thanks to my cameraman who's done the smoothest stint of today so far. I mean, 67 kilometers an hour doesn't sound like much, but it feels like we are traveling at the speed of light. Now, this is the final swap to today's overnight swap. We have 260 kilometers to go. That's easy peasy for this car's on the 100 kilowatt hour battery. So here goes the final stop. We are nearly there. Hello, we are into the last 30 kilometers of this 2,000 kilometer run. The destination now is Chengdu's airport, because I need to send my cameraman back. He needs to go back to his family for Chinese New Year. A few points for summary. First, don't do this. I mean, we did cumulatively 37 hours for 2,000 kilometers. The traffic, the weather, no, the traffic combined with the weather, if it's not the weather, then I think we can cut at least 7-8 hours out of it. The traffic was just atrocious. And when everyone was heading back home, and when you have rain, snow, and freezing conditions, it's just a recipe for disasters. We are lucky that we got through this 2,000 kilometers completely unscathed. We finished every day at 3 a.m. in the morning and departed at 9. And still we missed, we were supposed to be at the destination last night, but now here we are on the third day, 12 p.m. If there's any lesson you can learn from me in this punishing ride, is don't drive super long distance coming into the Chinese New Year. Secondly, don't do this in any vehicle. Don't do this even in a petrol-powered car. I have to say, the car is not the limiting factor. Not even once. We didn't even make even a single extra stop just because of the car. Every single stop, we were doing swaps, but also we were having lunch, having dinner, and go to the restrooms. The car is not the limiting factor. Throughout this 2,000 kilometers journey, we did 7 swaps. I'll come on to the 7th swap in a minute. On the highway, we did 6 swaps and 1 overnight charge. Not even once throughout those 6 swaps, among those 6 swaps, we didn't even queue up once. We were always arriving there the first 2 swaps. We did a overnight charge on the first night at the hotel, and last night I messed up the hotel booking. I thought the charging station was directly underneath the hotel's garage. Turns out it was across the road. And at 3 a.m. in the morning, I just don't have the mood to drive the car across the road, charge, and go back. So this morning, before leaving for Chengdu for the final 250 kilometers run, we did another swap. So in total, it's 7 swaps plus 1 overnight charge. And the car and the battery swap station didn't slow us down even the slightest. We were consistently the fastest cars on the road. How fast? Well, there were several times on the journey where we caught up the car before we were stopping for the battery or stopping for dinner. That's how fast we were going. We were driving as fast as the road conditions allow. It was just the weather and the traffic that slowed us down dramatically. Originally, this journey was supposed to be a 25-hour journey. We ended up 37 hours. Thirdly, the NOP system. I mean, if it's not this system, I would have given up halfway through the journey. It was just too hard. The conditions was, especially we need to drive a long distance at night with rain at -2 degrees. I mean, it was just as challenging as it gets. When it's pissing with rain and -1 degrees and with fog, I can't really see that much, but the system, with the knowledge of the high definition map and all of the sensors around the car, it's more reassuring than just driving myself. And I consider myself to be a quite experienced driver. I mean, I drove across America from Boston to San Francisco. I did a road trip from Paris to Monaco throughout and to the Nürburgring. So I also drove to the Arctic Circle in Alaska. So I'm not an inexperienced driver in this sort of long distance travel, and I still feel extra reassured because of NOP system. Fourthly, if you're gonna do long distance travel in an electric vehicle that's not a Neo, think again. Even if it's a Tesla, even if it's an 800 volt, 100 kilowatt hour battery that theoretically has better range than the ES8, the range is not the problem, it's the charging stations. I'll just show you a few pictures along the journey that every time we swap the batteries, we also drive past the charging station every single time. No, the last 2 stops coming into Chongqing and the western part of China, the EV penetration rate wasn't that great, so we could see some empty stations, empty charging stations. I will say about 1,500 kilometers out of this 2,000 kilometers journey, every single time I head into the service area, all of the charging stations were completely packed. You need to queue up. And that's just not a very nice experience when you are having heavy traffic jam. You are 7 hours every day behind schedule. I mean, if it's not a Neo that can battery swap, if it doesn't have the NOP system, I would have called off this project and head back to Shanghai on the first day. But yeah, we persisted and we are now less than 10 kilometers, and I would just like to wish you happy Chinese New Year from me. I'm heading back home. I hope you have a good time during the Chinese New Year, and we'll see you 10 days later. Bye bye.